The surface, in the fiery mantle of the earth, it begins. Searing heat, heavy pressure, strange and exotic elements melting, mixing, to form the beginnings of a gemstone. Violent beginnings that somehow seem to hint of a long, tumultuous life ahead. Today, we have gemstones that date back hundreds of years before Christ. What have these stones seen in their lifetime? And what is the power they wield over man? Hi, I'm Efrem Zimbalist, Jr. Gemstones, jewels, always been rather fascinating to me. I'm a bit of a rock hound, and I've always been captivated by the allure and excitement they seem to hold. But I guess when you think about their violent beginnings deep in the earth, it isn't so hard to realize the drama that seems to follow gemstones. It's easier to understand the power of the stone when you realize the power that made that stone. But really, what is it about gemstones that has beckoned to man since the very beginning of time? In ancient times, wars were fought, marriages promised, and even murders committed in the struggles to obtain gemstones. What other inanimate object could possibly have such long-reaching and long-lasting power over men's emotions? Today, the battles fought are just pages in history. The queens that wore them are only stories and pictures, but the gemstones live on. Their evolution from seething, molten lava deep in the earth to queens' throats and kings' crowns continues to fascinate me. We hope to get a better picture of that story today. We'll dig in the dirt of American gem mines usually forbidden to public eyes. We'll watch the process of making a rough, dirty crystal into a magnificent piece of jewelry. And we'll see the most brilliant collection of American gemstones in the world behind the closed doors of the Smithsonian Institute. Bob Jones is a nationally recognized writer and educator in the gem field. He's one of the experts we talk to about the very beginnings of a gemstone's life.
Well, first of all, the processes that create gemstones are still going on. The earth is dynamic. Deep below the surface, forces are constantly at work changing the so-called solid earth. The gem minerals we collect and mine today are found right on or near the Earth's surface. Surface erosion has exposed rock outcrops, and weathering has released, transported, and then concentrated the gem crystals, making possible their recovery. New gems are continually being created in different ways and on different levels within the Earth. We're all familiar with a cross-section of the Earth. There's the super hot core, the hot overlying mantle, some 1,800 miles thick, and the so-called solid crust. It's constantly being disrupted by earthquakes and volcanic activity. Now, from laboratory experiments, we know that the formation of diamonds takes tremendous heat and pressure, conditions we find only in the upper mantle of the Earth. So it appears that diamonds, and perhaps sapphires, rubies, and even gem peridot originate in the magma of the upper mantle. The molten magma, bearing its precious load, finds weaknesses in the crust and eventually works its way near the surface where crustal movement and erosion expose it to the forces of weathering. Well, within the crust itself, several gem-forming environments are known. They're all related to magma or volcanic activity. Molten magma originating in the crust may contain the gem minerals red beryl or sunstone. The heat and pressure of moving magmas also causes metamorphism, changing the structure of existing rocks. This may produce gems such as some types of garnet. Volcanism often creates very hot subterranean watery solutions seen dramatically when they burst to the surface as geysers or hot springs. Hot watery solutions may produce gem opal. Near copper deposits, turquoise may form. But the most dramatic effect from these hot, mineral-rich solutions results when they're trapped in fractures within the shallow crustal rock. They may contain many exotic elements dissolved within. These solutions may lead to the formation of granite pegmatites, one of our richest sources of gem minerals. What makes pegmatites special is that they're trapped in the crust and cool at a rate which allows for optimum crystal growth. In addition, the fluids within them are mobile and flow through open cavities, and this provides a continual supply of mineral nutrients to the growing crystals. The result is crystals of enormous size, tourmalines 2 and 3 feet long, beryls a foot or more in length, and topazes weighing tens of pounds. The natural processes and creative forces that led to the development of these crystals may also have caused crystal shattering, fracturing, or detrimental inclusions. But if the miner is really lucky, his crystals will be perfectly transparent, flawless, or have large gemmy sections which are suited to faceting into valuable gems. We can't overestimate the importance of weathering and freeing gem crystals from the rocks in which they form, no matter what their origins. Weathering is what tears rocks apart and releases whatever they contain. Fortunately, gem crystals are more resistant to weathering than the rock matrix in which they formed. The qualities that make gems desirable, high hardness and durability, also serve to help these crystals survive the ravages of weathering. Under favorable circumstances, these gems will be concentrated in gravels along riverbeds or in the soil above deeper, fresher rock yet to be exposed to weathering. Such gem gravels are called alluvial deposits, which means they were formed by rivers, floods, or running water. Gravels here and in other countries are a major source of gems today.
Okay, so we know a little bit more about how gems were formed. But do we really know what they are? John White is the curator of the Division of Mineralogy at the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, D.C. We asked John, another seasoned expert in gemology, that very question. What are gemstones?
One of the things that I've discovered working at a museum is that people all too often lose sight of the fact that minerals and gems are really the same thing. Gemstones are just particularly fine crystals of minerals that have been cut and polished. And so they are, in fact, one might say, happy accidents. They are those odd and rare crystals that are so beautiful that they've literally invited themselves to be altered such that the optical properties or whatever the minerals can be enhanced through some kind of treatment like cutting and polishing.
So what is it, do you think, that has caused man to dig and grovel in the dirt in hopes of finding these happy accidents? Johnson Kankis has authored numerous books on gemstones and gem cutting. He's internationally recognized as an expert in the field. We figured he, if anyone, could tell us about the allure of gem mining.
And I want to emphasize here that the thrill that occurs when you open up one of these pockets and you realize that you are the first human being that ever saw this object, the first one to ever see this. It's been hidden for thousands and thousands of years, maybe millions of years, and you are the first one to finally rub off the clay and realize what a marvelous thing you have. And you scream to your companion and say, "My God, look at this beautiful thing that I've just found."
This emotion of finding, this thrill that John described, is what's been the driving force behind several very significant gem finds in the United States. I think we just naturally associate gemstones with faraway, exotic places. You know, the mystery and allure of ancient lands. But precious gems have turned up right here in the United States. Approximately 100 years ago, George Frederick Kuntz, perhaps America's greatest gemologist, said that nearly all known types of gemstones have been found in the United States. Since that time, additional finds have been made. Discoveries have literally spread throughout the country. But for the purpose of this program, we'll concentrate on a few significant mines. A Montana sapphire mine, the tourmaline mines of Maine and California, red beryl mines in Utah, turquoise and peridot in Arizona, and sunstone in Oregon. The Ponderosa mine in Burns, Oregon is one of the newest mines in the sunstone market. Sunstones are also found in Finland, Norway, and in India. The stones mined in Oregon are significant in that sunstones from the rest of the world essentially get their color from minerals composed of iron oxide. In Oregon, the stones are colored by microscopic flakes of pure copper. Although this particular mine is relatively new, sunstone as a gem has been around a long time. John White explains more about this fascinating stone and mine.
The Oregon sunstone occurs in knots of crystals. The mineral name is labradorite, and they're locked into this volcanic rock, which is a basalt. Basalt is usually black, but in this case it's been oxidized. It's rusted actually and has turned it brown. This material is somewhat crumbly, so it lends itself readily to mining with the use of a bulldozer. The deposit is spread over a relatively broad area, and the miners bulldoze a lot of this material into a big pile where they then break it down and they put it on they screen it, put it on a box, a flat surface where they can separate the gem crystals from the waste. And that basically is what the mining entails at that particular deposit. There's no underground mining.
The deposit at the Ponderosa mine was discovered in the 1979-1980 time frame when the Forest Service put in some skidder roads for a logging operation that clear-cut this part of the forest. And they clipped the top of this deposit and discovered a predominance of clear crystals. And a little later in time, there was some cowboys up here running some range cattle up at the spring getting some water. And they picked up some of these rocks and took them into town and showed them to some folks, and they came up and put some mineral claims in on it, and we got involved with it shortly thereafter. From a geologic standpoint, we're in the crystals are in a lava flow, just like you see in Hawaii, and the crystals themselves are mixed in there like chocolate chips in chocolate chip batter, and evenly distributed throughout the flow. My passion is in seeing these beautiful rocks show up on the screen. I get goosebumps when a big one shows up. It's blood red sitting on the screen, and you know that it's worth a lot of money. And you also know that sometime, somewhere, it's going to end up in a ring or on a necklace, and it's going to be at a dinner party, and people are going to ooh and ah at it. But I also feel that this place that where we are now is a very, very special place. It is an unusual deposit, one-of-a-kind deposit, and there's a sense to it that makes it very special to me. I really don't believe that I own this deposit. I'm really excited about mine, and I love digging in the dirt. It's something I did when I was a kid. Now I'm making money at it.
The labradorite, or sunstone, as this gem variety is called, comes in a wide range of colors. This is a very beautiful 10-plus carat stone of the deep red color, a very rare deep red color.
Another unique and significant mine is found in the mountains of Utah. The mine, located in central Utah, is the only place in the world the red beryl is to be found. Rarer than the ruby, red beryl has an identical chemical composition to the emerald, which is why it's often referred to as the red emerald.
In the Wawa Mountains of Utah, there is another mine that's in the form of a quarry. It's an excavation at the surface in a gray volcanic rock called a rhyolite. That's this material here. What is unique to this locality is that mining uncovers these extraordinary hot red beryl crystals, the only place in the world where these are found. This is a magnificent specimen. You can see it's quite gemmy, both in the bottom half and the upper third. There's a little irregular area in the center that wouldn't be gem quality, but some very lovely stones could be cut from this. Most of the rock is exposed through drilling and blasting, and then the larger pieces have to be broken apart by hand. And if the miners are lucky, they'll come across at irregular intervals, an accumulation of these gorgeous crystals. Beryl is a family of gem minerals that includes more familiar things like aquamarine and emerald, morganite, which is pink beryl, heliodor, which is yellow beryl. But red beryl is very, very rare. As I mentioned, there's only one place in the world, and that's in Utah, where this mineral is found.
Now, as we've found more material, we have been able to produce probably 5,000 stones of melly proportions, 1 point to 10 or 15 points. And above that, up to a 1 carat, we're able to produce maybe 2 to 250 stones. And above 1 carat, there is a small amount, 10 or 15, 20 stones a year now is over the 1 carat range. And they don't seem to get much bigger than towards 2 carats. We did produce one really fine stone at 4.5 carats, but that seems to be the exception. As we're mining these, you can see from some of the materials, most of the materials are broken up. As we find them, they're just pieces. So the easiest way to, when you find quite an amount of this stuff, the easiest way is just to put them in your mouth. They're kind of dirty, and you have to spit out some of the dirt. The easier way, and we can laugh and carry on, and we just store them over in the side of our mouth till we have quite an amount, and then you have to spit them back out and wrap them up in your little paper. So, and I think this is common to the whole thing. That's where the term agate liquor came from. You have to lick these things to bring out their beauty. And so this is a kind of a job where you get to eat a lot of dirt. If you've got a $5,000 one in your mouth, it does taste quite good. Even though we've dug it for these 13 or 14 years, it's still quite a sensation to see something like this just fall out of the rock unexpected. You need a strong heart when these things happen. The anticipation is still there. I guess no matter how long you do this.
Yeah, there's a seam right here. In the spring, I was at the Tucson Gem and Mineral Show and was in our room there selling our cut stones, and this lady walked in, and she come over and took 2 or 3 crystals and put them out in her hand like that, and she was rubbing them, and I'd always kind of thought it was just kind of a hoax, she was rubbing them, and my father, he come in and looked at her and says, are you getting any vibes out of them? She says, yeah. And, oh, okay. And Dad, he kind of walked off. And so I sat down and talked to her. And she says, when you get out of your truck, she says, maybe I'm clear off my rocker. She says, tell me, but I'd like to say something. She says, when you drive up to your pit, you get out of your truck, you got a rim of your hole there, which we do. It's about like 10 feet, 15 feet straight off that rim. So you walk up to the rim, you look into the hole. Your main source of crystal energy is between the 1 to 2 o'clock position. She says, am I right? I says, yes. So we She says, have you got a photograph of your mine? Why she had that photograph? I says, okay. I says, that crystal, I says, where did I find it in that photograph? She pinpointed it. You know, she'd never been here before. Then she was saying that, you know, you got that main crystal flow. You're just about to that main throat of it. And I says, well, I says, if we go back in that direction any further, I says, there's a 40 to 50 foot high wall. She says, no, you don't have to go that far to get them. She says, you're just right there.
Was the lady real or a hoax? Who knows? But stories of magic and mysticism have always followed gemstones. From the earliest history, we're told that sapphires were supposed to relieve insanity and increase fertility. It was believed if poisonous insects or reptiles were shut in a room with a star sapphire, they'd be killed by the rays from the stone. A wine goblet carved out of amethyst was supposed to guard against drunkenness, allowing the owner to drink unlimited quantities of wine without any ill effects. Other gemstones were thought to prevent homesickness, to bring luck, and to grant invisibility to the wearer.
Well, I write articles for the national magazine Rock and Gem, and so I get letters from readers all the time. And I got a letter from a woman in Murfreesboro, Arkansas one day. Now, Murfreesboro is where the diamond mine is in that state. It's the only producing diamond mine we have. And she told me the story about having a dream in which she found a diamond, and then she relived the dream. So I went to visit her, and she told me all about it. She had a dream that she went to the mine one day, and she found under a bottle cap a large diamond. So the next day, she kept her kids out of school. They got together a picnic lunch, and they went down to the mine. They paid their fee, and they went in, and they searched and searched and searched all morning. Didn't find a thing. And so then they spread the blanket. It was lunchtime. They got the lunch out. And while she was sitting there eating her lunch, she happened to look over next to the blanket, and there was a bottle cap. She lifted up the bottle cap. Lo and behold, an 11-carat diamond sitting right there.
Remarkable, eh? You know, it seems there's a remarkable story for almost every gem mine around. In fact, the very first significant gem find in the United States is rather interesting in and of itself. It all began in Maine in 1820. Two young cousins, Elijah Holmes and Ezekiel Hamlin, were taking a shortcut near Paris, Maine, and stumbled over an upturned tree. There in the roots of the tree, they found several large, gemmy green crystals, which later proved to be tourmaline. The boys tried to go back the next day to find more, but a heavy snow had fallen that night, and they were forced to wait until the spring thaw. And so two boys, taking a shortcut, unknowingly made an indelible mark on the world tourmaline market. Tourmaline mining still occurs in the same area today. The miners, as well as the location, are steeped in history.
It's sort of in my blood, I guess. It's being the fourth generation gem miner here in the state of Maine. When we were mining Nuri, it was mined on a shoestring, basically. And my brother and I were enlisted as cheap help, real cheap. We were brought in as basically human donkeys. We had backpacks strapped onto us, and we were hauling material down the mountain until we had the road made. One instance I remember vividly was being held by my ankles and lowered down into a hole to haul material out. We had a lot of fun though. We made do with what we had. I think my sister's little Weston Flyer wagon was even brought into the picture, and we used it as basically a little coal cart, and we hauled it in and out on a little ramp to haul the material out of the pocket. It was a fantastic experience.
Tourmalines are mined in pegmatites in Maine, and here they come in this sort of a cranberry color and they also come in a magnificent green color, a color which in my mind is unique to the Maine tourmaline. The green being an extraordinary shade that produces some remarkable stones of an unbelievable color, such as this. This is a shade of green that's unique to Maine, even though green tourmalines are found in many other parts of the world. This one color has never been equaled, as far as I know, from any other locality.
But the Jolly Green Giant, the initial thing that I saw when I first found that, a little green tip, about 3/4 of an inch long, was sticking out between 2-3 pieces of Clevelandite. And at that time, it could have been a crystal no bigger than my thumb or any size. So we started digging around it and held my hand underneath it in case it was a little one. So I'm holding my hand underneath it, and I keep going around it, and the prism face kept growing larger and larger and larger, and it grew till, as you cleaned it off, this beautiful deep green. We lingered over that and stretched that out for about 45 minutes, digging that one crystal out, just digging a little here and a little there, and kind of putting a light underneath it. Actually, we were mentally fondling it, and we hadn't touched it with our fingers, but we'd held it in our hands mentally for half an hour before it came out. And that's what turned out to be the Jolly Green Giant.
I love the job. It's great. It's hard to explain. You get a feeling of elation. You want to let out with a whoop and a holler.
Southern California has also made its print on the tourmaline market. Large amounts of gem tourmaline, including beautiful bicolor specimens, have been found near San Diego.
In California, the gem mineral is tourmaline, and it's mined from a pegmatite, just as it is in Maine. The crystals, when they come out of the ground, look very much like this. Because a pegmatite, when it's forming, is a very fluid environment, there is an opportunity for extraordinary crystal growth. The crystals tend to grow into open cavities so that they're beautifully formed, and they also very often come in exceptionally large sizes. This is a magnificent tourmaline crystal from California, from the Himalaya mine. It has gem material within it, even though it may not look like it's all that gemmy, because the skin very often has a lot of imperfections. This is a 38-carat rubellite tourmaline from the Himalaya mine, and this is about as lovely a color of red as one could ever hope to see in a tourmaline.
Here at the Himalaya mine, with our pegmatite only being approximately a 3-foot thickness, we don't blast the pegmatite itself. The tourmaline, when you find it, especially after maybe putting in 500 feet of tunnel without having found anything, it's quite an exciting moment. We will examine the pegmatite every day looking for signs of new pocket zones. It's never dull, but you're never sure in the beginning what exactly you're going to find until you pull a really magnificent piece out. The value of the piece at that time isn't quite as exciting as just knowing you're the first person to ever touch something crystallized 80 million years ago.
The tourmaline from this mine is unique in that the crystals are topped by a deep blue color, something not found in other areas.
Now, I must emphasize, this is the place where all of the story begins, right here, this little black spot. This is schorl tourmaline. It's iron-rich, it's not worth anything. But as it passes into the cavity, and this is the lining of the cavity coming over here, you see, and the tourmaline starts growing, a miracle occurs. The iron now has been absorbed by other minerals in the system and is no longer available to discolor the tourmaline and make it black. So something else has to come in. Manganese, perhaps, other elements have to come in, and they're able to take their position in the crystal structure of the tourmaline. And when they do, lo and behold, the crystal clarifies. It becomes pink. And then we finally see a strange thing happening at the very end, and if we look at this termination, we see it's blue. This one is good because it shows you the very dark color. This is that transition zone. This is where the iron is beginning to go. You see, it's no longer available. And there's this tourmaline crystal. It's got all the other ingredients it needs to grow. So what does it do? It picks something else in place of it, gradually changes its composition, and when we hold it up to the light, we can see it getting redder and redder and redder, and finally there's the blue cap. Now, the blue cap is significant of one thing, is that for those of us in San Diego County who really know our tourmalines, we look at that blue cap and we know immediately where the crystal came from, because there's no other place that we know of in the world that produces quite that combination of a nice blue cap on top of a red tourmaline. In other words, this is a unique occurrence. But anyway, there it is. It's really a miracle that it happens. And people always ask, has that been polished by man and so forth? And they say, no, it hasn't. Mother Nature did this.
Too often, it seems Mother Nature keeps these little miracles to herself. But every so often, she looks kindly on someone and gives them the surprise of their lives. We talked a little earlier about the serendipity connected to many gemstone finds. How's this for a story? Not long ago in Montana, a young lady was out jogging by the roadside. Just out jogging, nothing new. Except she jogged past this road cut and saw something sort of bright and sparkly. She decided to stop and pick it up. It turned out to be a 14-carat natural octahedron diamond. Now, while this sort of happening could be attributed to pure luck, there are some individuals who seem to have the touch for finding gemstones. One man who arguably has this knack is Sam Spearstra. As one who has successfully mined rubies in India, diamonds in the Amazon, and recently made an extremely important find of sapphires in Montana, we asked Sam what he attributed his success to.
When I first began looking in Montana for sapphire deposits, there are several here that have been historically important in 2 or 3 different places in the state. But my criteria was, first of all, it had to be a placer mine. In other words, the stones had washed out of some original source into a gravel or river deposit, because they're much cheaper to mine. So I investigated especially this Missouri River area, because the deposits there are largest in the state. And then on the Missouri, there's only a 30-mile stretch of river gravel that contains sapphire in commercial quantities. So I investigated several of those deposits. They're called bars. They're elevated gravels that were laid down by an ancient Missouri River. In our case, for instance, the deposition is about 200 feet higher than today's stream. And the El Dorado bar lays just below a narrow gorge, which was worn through by the Missouri River. And so that it gave the water coming out of the gorge a large energy, and deposited, I think, the most sapphires and the largest sapphires of any of the other river bars. Then there's also a science behind it using the 5 senses. I picked this up in India from a fellow who learned it from his father, and so on back through time, how to find the precious crystals in the ground using the 5 senses. It's not hocus pocus, it's simple science.
The sapphires that are mined in Montana are mined in an altogether different fashion. They've been weathered through erosion from the rocks in which they formed, a rock just like this, which is a basalt, and over a long period of geologic time, they've accumulated in placers, which are just deposits of rock, sand, gravel, what have you. And the sapphire is very resistant to erosion, so it doesn't break down. It just accumulated in these placers over a long period of time. Mining involves digging up or exposing these placers and sifting them with a series of screens and separating the gem material. The sapphires, when cut, can provide a wonderful array of colors, such as you see here. This is a set of sapphires from Montana showing the range of colors that the mines are famous for. Sapphire can come in virtually any color of the rainbow, and this well illustrates that point. This is a wonderful set of colored stones. Many of these colors are extremely rare. This deep blue sapphire here is very close to the ultimate in sapphire color, and it is the color that most people think about when they hear the term sapphire. But all these other colors are well known in the sapphire family too.
We've got a large resource. I mean, if I went at the present rate that I'm going now, it would take me perhaps the rest of my life to mine this one property. And this is going to make or you'll see over the years in the future, is going to make a large impact on the sapphire market. Well, I don't have any formal geological training. I'm a miner. That means
Trying to make money out of the ground. That's what all the miners we talk to are trying to do. But as I'm sure most of them know, some days are more fruitful than others. Could make all the difference in a day.
Well, I've got a friend who owns and he opens it for fee digging. You can pay a fee and go in and do a little dig. Pretty successful doing that. And he likes to keep the place with fresh material, so he uses a bulldozer to turn over the dumps and to turn over new material. And he was working his bulldozer one day, dragging the material out so that it would be smooth and easier to work. And he would stop and pick up debris anytime it showed up because he didn't want people to have problems with it. And as he was backing the bulldozer up, he saw this brown thing that rolled off the edge of the blade. He thought it was a broken beer bottle, so he stopped and went down and picked it up. And it turned out not to be a broken beer bottle, but a piece of opal that had broken into 3 chunks, and they were the most beautiful, colorful, precious opal. The entire thing weighed 7 pounds, and it's just a marvel to behold.
Mined on Indian reservations in Arizona, peridot is a hard stone ranging from a yellow-green to bottle-green color. These mines have been a major contributor to the world peridot market. Under very tight security, the mines are seldom seen by the public eye.
In Arizona, peridot occurs in a volcanic rock called basalt. This very dark gray, black rock here is basalt. And the peridot crystals occur as knots in the basalt. Very often they're fractured, and as you see here, but occasionally large gemmy areas will be found without any fractures in them. And when that occurs, from those large crystal pieces, they can cut stones that look like this.
In ancient times, peridot was believed to offer the wearer happiness in marriage and power of eloquence. It was also believed that peridot would give one freedom over physical and emotional insecurity. Hawaiians refer to the stones as Pele's tears. According to the legend, the great goddess Pele emitted these green-colored tears on the sand. In this desolate stretch of Arizona desert, Indians mined peridot with the same methods and tools their fathers and grandfathers have used. It is slow, painstaking work, searching for the gem hidden deep within the rock by Mother Nature. Only tribal members are allowed to mine this area, and only few have the strength and stamina to endure the difficult labor and blazing heat. But periodically, this harsh, austere land rewards us lavishly. Some of the world's most magnificent peridot gems have been unearthed in these mines. But usually when most people think of Arizona and gems, it's in reference to another stone, turquoise, one of the oldest gemstones mined. Turquoise was used extensively in jewelry dating back to early Egypt and pre-Columbian America. Historically, the stone was mined in Persia and marketed extensively in Turkey, which is where it got its name. Turquoise was believed to bring both luck and money. In ancient Persia, horses were ornamented with turquoise to protect the rider from accident or injury.
Turquoise, as it's found in Arizona and throughout most of the Southwest, occurs in veins in a trachytic rock. It actually was deposited in fracture, and that's how the veins were produced. So these veins are mined away with hammers for the most part. Deposits tend to be relatively by hand labor over a very short period of time sometimes.
Oldest minerals mined in the United States. It's associated with part of the country, and the Indians found the stone, and it's hard enough where it makes a good piece of jewelry, a good stone, and so on, but it's soft enough where it can be hand worked. What they could do is they could take the stones and they could break them, they could grind them against other stones and so on. They could drill holes in them using bone or wood drills with a bit of abrasive material and make some excellent pieces of jewelry. So it's a very ancient, old material.
As I mentioned before, people have been using turquoise and other stones in jewelry for thousands of years. Through the centuries, man experimented with stones and designs to create beautiful objects of art. Today is no exception. Men and women who experiment with cutting and polishing gemstones are called lapidarists. It takes something special inside of you to be able to look at a stone like this and see its potential to become something like this. How does it get from here to here? That's what we're going to find out. No two stones are alike. That's why the cutting, polishing, and shaping of gemstones is such an art. It not only takes recognizing the stone's hidden beauty, but knowing how to emphasize that beauty to its greatest potential. Something that takes years of experience. There are basically two different kinds of cut gemstones: faceted stones and cabochons. Faceted stones are cut to emphasize the stone's refractive properties. Different planes are cut in the stone so that the light entering from above is reflected back through the top. Each plane is polished vigorously to achieve the maximum brilliance. Faceted stones are hard and brittle. On the other hand, cabochons are usually cut from softer, more opaque material. Cabochons are rounded, polished stones with a domed top. The cut is used to emphasize color rather than the refractive qualities of the stone. Turquoise is cut as a cabochon to emphasize the beautiful color. Pieces of the stone are cut into slices. These slabs are trimmed to isolate the best features of the stone and to minimize wasted material. The stones are then ground down, sanded, and polished till they reach what would be considered a finished state. Sunstone is another stone that can be cut into cabochons.
You can do anything with the rock that you want to do as long as you have the right equipment. And in today's world, basically, even as long as people have been cutting stones, you still have to develop your own equipment to do certain things that you want to do with a rock. And you find that you need different types of equipment to do different things. Faceting is a very precise type of thing. Cabbing is less precise as far as the type of equipment you need. These are the only sunstone beads on the planet, and we had these cut in Germany. The cutters went crazy because they have to orient every single bead when they drill the holes in them. They'd never, of course, cut anything like this. And overall, they enjoyed doing it, and we have something that no one else has as far as product.
Sunstones are a gem that can also be faceted. As we discussed, faceting is a process of cutting faces on stones to emphasize light and color.
You have to learn how to work with the material in order to get the best gem out of it. And so you keep working with it, and they act differently all the time. The different places in the mine that they have found them all seem to cut a little different, act a little different. Some have a lot more internal stress than others. And it is frustrating when you have a real gemmy piece and have it just pop with little fractures in it when you are working on it and cutting on it. You know, you're always learning. You can't ever think you know it all. Crystal will come along and ruin that theory for you.
When we grade this material out and are looking for faceting material versus cabochon material versus a mineral specimen, then it's going to be a quality piece. The thing we look for in the mineral specimens is size of the crystal, its length, its diameter, how good a color is it, is the piece on matrix, is it still attached to the mother rock, or is it free floating in the pocket with having not been attached to anything and it's just crystallized out of molten material. We want a piece that is as pristine and as natural a crystal as Mother Nature really intended, without any dings or nicks or chips or anything else. When we find that type crystal, that becomes the benchmark really against which all other crystals are measured, whether by price or by aesthetic value or quality or color.
Much like a sculptor, lapidarists take rough stone, evaluate it, then cut, grind, and polish to create a masterpiece.
Watching a piece of rough being transformed by your own skill into a finished gem is also thrilling. The problem is that you never really see the results until the very end, because you have to cut one side as a stone and the other side is mucked up with a lot of wax, and you can't really tell what you're doing. And the only thing you're certain of is that this part that you just got through polishing looks pretty good, and then you dop it and you take this off, well, and cut this part. But then finally you get to this point, this breathless moment, when you go ahead and finally separate it from the dop, and you bring the stone out and you use solvent to get rid of the final bit of wax, and then some Kleenex, and you wipe it off and so forth, and hold it in your hand, and there it is, glittering and blazing away. That terrible thrill of discovery, of seeing this beautiful cut stone that emerged from a piece of rough that nobody would have paid any attention to begin with.
As mentioned before, Indians have been creating beautiful turquoise jewelry for centuries. The arts passed down from generation to generation are still alive today. She works with silver and gold to create a variety of Indian turquoise.
When anything, you know, like you're making a rug, it's a stair. You copy nobody. You're doing your own thing, see, and jewelry, or I don't know about other jewelry, see, that's all. And the artist in you starts to roll by itself. Makes you feel good. Makes you feel like there's a lot of Indian people into it now. We can't leave our culture.
After craftsmen have taken the gem from a rough stone to a finished piece, it is often displayed for the public to ooh and ah. Some of the world's most beautiful and wondrous examples are found in the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, D.C. Since the early 1900s, the Smithsonian has been noted for its collection of not only American gemstones, but gemstones from all over the world.
The Smithsonian, of course, is the national museum for the United States, and therefore I think it's appropriate that we make an effort to acquire the best gemstones from this country we possibly can. We've done that. We've been fairly successful. We're not going to quit. We're going to continue. Whenever new gemstones are found in the United States, we will do our best to try to get good samples of them for the collection. Because we feel that this is one place where the public can come, should be able to come and see the best. And so we'll do everything in our power to try to make that possible.
So here we are, from the depths of the earth to the pinnacle of society. You'd scarcely recognize it from the dirty, muted mineral it once was, yet it's made the journey, and now holds the power and magic that has worked on mankind for ages. So, are you ready to join in the treasure hunt? Let's just add a few last bits of advice from the experts.
Anyone who seriously goes looking for gems should spend a lot of time first, at least some time first, in reading books on the area, geological books and historical books on the area, and then studying the maps, the geology maps.
I think as a geologist and a gem miner, the thing that I would tell the novice is appreciate that gemstones have been an integral part of our civilization and all civilizations on this planet since man climbed down from the trees.
Well, if someone should stumble onto a crystal out in the field somewhere and becoming a gemstone, there are plenty of resources and get an expert's opinion as to what it
is. And we shouldn't feel that we have to really travel 1,000 miles to learn how to gem cut when you can read a book and teach yourself how to do it.
I'm really excited about mine, and I love digging in the dirt. It's something I did when I was a kid. Now I'm making money at it.
It's hard to explain. It's you get a feeling of elation. You want to let out with a whoop and a holler.
You need a strong heart, no matter how long you do this.
You know, we're talking crystals that the small ones were the size of flashlight batteries, and most of them were the size of a 12-ounce soda can. Things that you just never dream of seeing. It's like Aladdin's cave.
So, we've heard it from the experts, people who've spent their lives working with gemstones. We followed the stones from their earliest beginnings to their final glittering glory. We've seen them mined, cut, polished, and displayed. So really, what are you waiting for? Join in the search for Earth's buried treasure. After all, Who knows where they'll show up next?